Maybe we should start today with a cheers. We'll turn that up in post. What's up, brother?
Not much, man. That's a little too hot for me right now.
Fair enough. I just burned my tongue a little bit.
Yeah.
How was your day?
It's all right. Feeling a little tired today, man. Just a little off. Didn't sleep like 100%. I'm gonna keep it honest with you.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I certainly can feel that, man. My sleep's been crap lately.
Yeah.
And I almost, speaking of today's episode, I almost died last night. Freaking I got up to pee and then my shoe was blocking me from shutting my door when I went back to bed. And I bent down to move the shoe out of the way and I slammed my face on this shelf I had. Dude, I thought the house shook, man. And I realized you see this right here? Yeah. It's like starting to bruise, man. So
yeah, you gotta be
we
careful.
made it.
You gotta be careful, man. I'll get up sometimes in the middle of the night and my balance is just not there.
Oh yeah.
It's like dark and shit.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
But
you've been laying down for so long, you just feel helpless.
It's always a good hang.
How are you? How was your day?
It was all right, man. It was all right. Just what did I even do today? Breakfast, gym. Yeah, it was a gloomy day.
Yeah.
Kind of apropos for the episode we're diving into today.
Yeah, I mean the vibe. We'll dictate the vibe.
Yeah.
This
is our
this is
vibe.
cool. I'm excited about this one, man.
Yeah. Anyway,
Excited.
what's up, everybody? Good vibes. Yeah,
It's always a good hang.
it is. It's always a good hang. Even after death, it's a good hang.
100. Yeah, we're talking about death, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about death. Which,
The afterlife.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. I think this is gonna be an interesting episode, man.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. Death has always been something that has really intrigued me.
It's intriguing.
Yeah, not in a morbid way, really. That's not really how I think of it, but more so just I'm curious, It's because it's really the one thing that none of us can try and live to tell about it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So there are some people who have done it and have come back and have talked about their experience and whatnot, but as far as the vast majority of humans, it's like the big unknown. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny. Like every human that has ever lived has died, and it's something that I feel like there's certainly some commonality in life among human beings, and that is the biggest one.
Yeah,
we all do that
Mhm.
at some point.
It's
and,
the only constants in life are death and taxes. You know who said that? Danny DeVito. I'm just kidding. It was Ben Franklin. But it's just. I mean, it's funny. Like you said, it's like it happens to everybody.
It's inevitable, man.
It is inevitable.
It's inevitable. We're thrust into this world. I didn't choose to be born.
Yeah. What the hell?
But I'm glad I'm here, and it's funny. Like you juke through the trials and the tribulations of life, and you realize, I feel like for the most part, you realize, life's pretty good. Life's a miracle in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm here right now. Like a lot of things had to happen for me to be talking right now, and it's just wild that like that realization of like, this could come to an end at any time, really.
Yeah, and it kind of brings up the question: why does it scare us so much?
I think that's a great question.
I think it's very much a cultural thing too. Yeah. Because, I don't want to get into that just yet, but there are, a lot of cultures that celebrate death in a different way. And I was thinking about it, why does death scare us? And I've got a couple points here that I'd like to talk about. But number one, I think a lot of people are just afraid of being in an immense amount of pain and dying in a really horrific way.
I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, I mean, we go through our life and we hear stories of people burning alive or drowning and just dying and suffering as they die.
Right.
It's not guaranteed that you're going to die that way, but it is a possibility, and it's really scary, man.
Yeah. I mean, especially with all the people watching videos and whatever. Like you see these movies and like these horrific things, people getting whacked in scary movies. It's like. And I kind of understand that fear. But, I think there's a difference between fearing death and just not wanting to die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I think I certainly don't want to die, but I don't live in fear. of dying. I know it's an inevitable thing,
Mm-hmm.
but like I don't want to die young. I
Right.
want to live out my life. I want to experience a lot more, and I
Mhm.
want to do a lot more things. And there's this sense of I want to live to my fullest potential, and like to be robbed of that, I feel like by dying young would stink, and it breaks my heart. I've had friends die young, and it's just, man, it's tragic. But
It really is, man. It's funny you mentioned that actually, because the next point I had was fear of an abrupt ending to your life's work. And whether that be you working on how you love other human beings or literally your life's work, say, you know, you're a filmmaker or you're a musician or whatever, just this unbelievably sudden and abrupt ending to that. And like, it's so funny because we you know, we play video games where you kill people and you respawn and this and that. And it's like, you know, I'm watching this movie and the good guys are going through blah, blah, blah. And then as if there's no magnitude to it, they just, you know, like kill a bad guy. And I'm like, say that bad guy was 45 years old. You know, he just went through his entire life, you know, birthdays and loved ones and breakups and falling in love and high times and low times. And for all of it to just end in an instant because you were just kind of a background character in someone else's main character plot. It's like so crazy to think about. You know, it really urges us to look at all perspectives of the narrative on death and dying. And another huge fear I have is leaving people behind or being left behind. You know, relationships that I really value and I really want to experience every day of my life. Like the idea of not having that anymore is really just difficult to think about.
yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, dying in a super shitty way would suck.
yeah. Yeah. It brings me back to the top 3 episode. Shot out of a cannon with a little cape on. So funny.
Yeah.
But
I mean, man, self-preservation is just wired into our DNA. And I think that's where a lot of that, you know, that fear of death comes from too.
mhm.
I think it's not even really a choice. It's a hard wiring of, you know, I want to live. So it's interesting, you know, but I'm excited to explore what happens after. Like, I think I'm very curious about it. And a lot of people fetishize death, kind of. They like, you know, they have this obsession with it.
Mhm.
My stepdad is like obsessed with the idea of dying, and he talks about dying, and he's almost like excited about it a little bit. But he's also someone who lives has such a wonderful life. Like he lives this like really like he loves his life and he like lives that way. But he's also like he has this like when I die, it's gonna be my time to die. It's almost like it's interesting
that it's my time to die. I mean, that's like, I think a really good way to look at it. You know what I mean? And especially depending on what you believe in, if you follow a certain faith or if you just, you know, believe XYZ, it's like that could be a comforting thought to kind of anchor yourself in. And it's all really fascinating, man. I've always wondered, say in the scenario, you know, you get hit by a car and you die, right? I've always wondered if to other people, say there's bystanders, if they see you get hit by that car and die, to them, they're going, oh my gosh, that must have been so painful for him in the moment. He got hit by that car. It was so gruesome or whatever. But I'm wondering if from your perspective, what if your soul gets like lifted out of your body and you see it happen in third person? You don't feel any of that pain. It's almost as if your body just goes into autopilot mode and you're already on to the next thing. This is like a thought I've had. And also, I have to bring this up. Like, what if there are times where you die without realizing it, right? You know, for some reason, like, you know, you're walking down the street and you catch a stray bullet or whatever, something you don't see coming, right? What if your mind has a way of buffering that transition where like you don't actually experience it, but when it happens, you like jump to another timeline where it didn't happen. And for you, it's just like you just continued walking down the street. But in the old timeline, you got shot in the head and died.
like you almost like your consciousness like goes to a different reality.
Exactly. Like as before you get shot.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like Rick and Morty do that a lot.
Yeah. The jumping timelines.
Yeah. It's like
Buried in the backyard. It's crazy.
That'd be wild, man. That'd be wild. Like, I have some thoughts about that, but I'm gonna get into that a little later, I think. But yeah, what if you could live forever, bro? Have you ever entertained this thought?
Yeah.
Would you want to?
I don't know. I mean, I think part of what makes life so special is the fact that it's finite. You know what I'm saying? I mean, think about how much in our society we base the value of it off of scarcity,
Very true.
gold or true love. Like you know what I'm saying? So if life was infinite and you could never die, it's like, what's your incentive to really care about the stuff that we deem worthy? You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I don't think I would do it. I would, if someone said to me, you take this magic pill, you live to be 150, 200 years old, and you can keep a young body and all that stuff. I'd be like, you know what? Hell yeah, man.
Oh, dude. I mean, I think a couple hundred years would be cool. I think that'd be almost better.
Yeah.
I would prefer that,
Right.
maybe. But
I don't know about forever.
But 3,000, bro, totally different game.
That's insane.
Especially if
all you would know at that point.
Like you would have traveled the whole world
Mhm.
so many times over. You've seen everything. You've done everything there
know
is to
every
do,
language,
probably.
Yeah.
I imagine, the mental health after living that long would be a tough battle.
Yeah. How do you, not only keep yourself occupied, but maintain purpose for yourself?
Right.
I don't know.
I don't know, man.
It's an interesting concept. Have you ever thought about your life flashing before your eyes?
Yeah.
What do you like? What does that look like to you?
Like, what would I see?
Well, yes, but also, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's certainly possible, man. I mean, shit. I think when you die, like I'm not 100% sure this. Like we're not experts over here, so I'm not 100% sure of the science. But your brain releases a lot of chemicals and stuff. I think your brain might release some DMT, and there's these stories of people having these experiences where they've had a near death experience, or they died, or their heart stopped beating, and they saw these things. They're resuscitated, and then they come back and tell these stories of life flashed before my eyes.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know, man. Like I think that'd be pretty cool to catch a highlight reel.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, this was sick. Like here's a 10-minute cut.
Yeah.
Maybe damn, that was tight. On to the next.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like the only thing I would see one time in high school, I made a half court shot in gym class.
It's just that. And
Just
it
that.
cuts you then. You're just reincarnated.
Yep. As a basketball. That'd be crazy. I mean, there's all these kind of concepts and different perspectives on it. And I think we need to talk about, how different cultures and different faiths think about this stuff. You know what I mean? Because, this is, and just as a disclaimer, did a pretty light research on all this.
Yeah.
There's, if you're watching this and a lot about this, we encourage you to comment and educate us and just kind of fill in the gaps. But,
right. I think this is kind of a delicate subject kind of too.
For sure.
If it strikes a chord, it might strike a chord with some people. Certainly we have nothing but respect
yeah,
for all belief systems and,
Yep.
and the right to believe what you want to believe.
yeah,
Like, we're just chopping here. So
yeah. I think that's definitely a good thing to say. Like, just to reiterate what you just said, these are just our thoughts and our opinions and experiences, and what we believe is just what we believe. And, again, just to back up what you just said, to make it so abundantly clear, like we have nothing but respect for all belief systems, faiths.
Absolutely.
If you don't have a faith that you follow,
Yeah.
that's cool too.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
so yeah, let's dig into it, man.
Yeah, as far as just like a perspective on death and some other cultures here, like Mexico, I really dig what they do. Like the Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead. It's just like a really joyful, vibrant celebration. They celebrate like the souls of the dead returning. It's cool. I would love to take part in this too, because I feel like in Western society, I'm going to talk about some of these first, then I'm going to go into that.
Okay.
But it's just cool what some of these other cultures do. They have so much respect, and it's just, you're celebrated when you die. And I would feel better about dying knowing that my younger relatives and whatever are celebrating.
Yeah,
Like, that was sick,
exactly.
dude.
I was doing some research on this, and I thought it was pretty cool. They make home altars to the people who have passed, and they put their favorite things or like their favorite meal.
Photographs.
Yeah, I
and
think that's so
whatever.
cool,
Yeah.
man. It's like
The skulls are sick.
yeah,
I love skulls, man.
it's beautiful. I mean, the art that is kind of central to this celebration, and just the color spectrum that you see from the pictures of the parades and stuff. It's amazing, man. And just I think we could all maybe take a little bit of notes from that perspective on it. I mean,
And if the souls do come back,
right.
imagine how cool that is for the souls.
Yeah, it's honestly very like deferential and just respectful for the people who have passed, for them to see that they're being celebrated, like you said. And I think that's really cool. And it's what they would have wanted, and how each family's celebration of their lost loved one is different and totally customized to that person. And like, I mean, how can it get more respectful than that? I mean, that's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Right.
Did you have any other like kind of cultures that you dove into with this?
In Ghana, the Akan people, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, Akan. They view death as a transition to the ancestral world. And funerals are grand affairs, often lasting several days.
Oh, wow.
And they're seen as a way to honor the deceased and ensure their successful journey to the afterlife. But we'll talk about some of the customs and stuff. Music, dancing, feasting, they might be buried with personal belongings. Elaborate ceremonies, man. And they feel like it's their responsibility for that transition, as far as it's like
To guide them.
It's like for the well-being of their ancestors.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like a very, it's not just a mournful occasion. It's like it's kind of like a big celebration kind of.
Yeah.
I just think that's cool because, like I was saying a minute ago, like in where we are, in Western cultures, it's often viewed, with sadness and it's very solemn and it's I don't really consider it isn't much of a celebration, wake and a funeral. It's very
Yeah.
has this very morbid kind of not always, but
I think it says something that typically the person officiating a funeral or a wake has to reiterate
right.
that we should celebrate the life of this person. It's not just a given that that's what we're doing right now. It definitely feels like, at least in, I can't speak for all cultures, but in American culture, there's definitely much more of a focus on the death rather than the life of the person. And how it's associated with like the color black. It's this very like, and so many things in our world and our society, man, like we have the power to shape our perspective on it. And this is a great example of that we kind of choose to put it in this really dark and sad light. Whereas something like in Mexican culture, they celebrate it as this colorful occasion and everything. It's like, think about how different our brains would develop if that's how we viewed passing on to the afterlife, as opposed to this terrifying thing that we don't know what happens. And it's like, if you don't live a good life, you're going to blah, blah, blah. It's like,
Right. I think it's because those beliefs vary so widely of what happens
sure.
that it's just kind of like,
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. It's fascinating.
yeah.
What else did you have?
I had one more in Tibetan Buddhism. I'm just going to read this. Death is seen as a transition between two lives, and the afterlife is an important part of the belief system. The body is often prepared through rituals such as the sky burial, where the body is left on a mountain to be consumed by vultures, symbolizing the release of the soul.
Sick.
That's pretty cool. I don't know. That's to some people that might be like,
Yeah.
I would let my body be taken by vultures. Like
Yeah,
that,
man. I would let my body be used for science. I mean, hell, you could just cremate me and throw me in a dumpster for all I care. But I don't know. Buddhism is definitely one I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of the next points I had.
Yeah.
Like,
should we dive into some of the world's most popular ideologies and stuff?
I think so, definitely.
I think it's interesting. Let's talk about the afterlife, man.
Yeah. Do you want to start with Buddhism?
We can start with Buddhism, sure.
Okay. Just because, kind of just mentioned it.
Yeah.
The idea of rebirth and reincarnation in Buddhism, I think is really fascinating
Very
because
fascinating.
think about a lot of these faiths inform how you live your life, obviously. So something like Buddhism, I mean, there's such a hope in that. And that, you know what, if this life is tough for me, then maybe when I'm reincarnated in the next life, should I receive good karma, something else that's kind of integral to the Buddhist faith, my next life might be a little bit better. And I think that gives people a lot of hope and maybe peace.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I just find that fascinating, especially the idea of karma. You know what I mean? It's worth saying that like a lot of folks in the US and countries like that, we use and throw around a lot of these concepts.
Right.
That they're widely used in the Western vernacular, whether people believe in that faith or not. And it's, people talk about reincarnation all the time, and even just saying karma's a bitch. You know what I'm saying? Like this idea of what you put into the universe is what you get out. And I think that's something that a lot of faiths have in common, is this idea of input versus output.
I think there's some reality to it.
Yeah,
I studied
absolutely.
Buddhism in college, actually, and just on that idea of like what you put in is what you get out. Like I think the brain is so powerful, that when you align it with whatever, doing good things will happen to you.
Yeah,
it's just like it's just a way of acting that is, that energy is what's it called?
It's symbiotic.
Exactly. Or
Yeah.
it's
It's palpable. It's palpable. Like you can fucking
Yeah.
smell and taste that
Exactly,
energy. It's
bro.
like
exactly.
it is so ever present, and to use a term that we were thrown around in previous episodes, like omnipotent, man. I mean, it's like I don't know.
I just like the idea of like there's not a permanence to this thing. Like it's a continuous stream of consciousness, and that's
Sure.
kind of that's kind of something that really is intriguing to me.
Why?
Because it's like, what is consciousness? Is
Right.
it something that's out of it? It's almost like a non-local entity, or
Right,
almost
right,
that
right.
like this is a physical body that I'm in,
Mm-hmm.
but
But the server is somewhere else.
right.
thing.
It's and it's like energy. The law of whatever thermodynamics. It can't be created or destroyed.
Yeah.
So is there some transfers going on? Like I think the concept of reincarnation is very interesting. Very interesting. So yeah, I dig it.
Yeah, it's. I mean, we definitely have to talk about Christianity.
Of course.
That's like one of the most widely practiced faiths in the world, and something. It's personally what I practice, and something that the pastor at my church said one time I thought was really, really interesting. He was like, we need to set a hard boundary between religion and faith, two very different things. And he said, what we're practicing here is faith. And I really liked that, because I grew up Roman Catholic, and then I very much diverged from that because, the church was super stuffy. It was very rigid. It felt like a religion. You know what I mean? There's this liturgy of just like hardcore rules, you know what I mean? But then, after some recent events in my life, I think I talked about this in the wellness episode, but I was just looking for something, and I kind of got back in touch with my faith, and I've just found new meaning in it, and it works for me, and it helps me to live a life that I really want to live. So,
That's good.
it, just like anything, it can be weaponized in an interesting way.
Absolutely.
And, these are very delicate subjects for sure.
Yeah. So how does Christianity view the afterlife? I know there's this heaven and hell concept.
Yeah. To my understanding, there are obviously those out there that are much more versed in this faith than I am. But the idea is, man was inherently sinful. Jesus died for our sins. And now we have this idea of heaven and hell. And I'm butchering the explanation of this, but to my understanding, it's you live a good life and you live your life by a certain code of ethics and just certain practices, and you'll grant access to heaven, and the bad all the bad shit goes to hell, but it's an interesting faith. I mean, there's so many different interpretations of Christianity, and there's so many different branches of it that there's a lot of conflict within the church itself about this faith. And I think that it's a very, very difficult thing. At least it was very difficult for me when I was kind of refinding or rediscovering this, to really make sure that I was basing it all on my want to do good, to be good, and doing it for the right reasons. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like Jesus said, when you pray, go in your room and shut the door. And I think that's such a powerful idea that he said, because it's like, we don't do this out of vanity or the need to be seen. We do this because there's something greater at work here. And, Christianity does like a pretty good job of personifying God and a higher power, but I personally don't think God is like a man. You know what I mean? I don't view God as with flesh and blood, with arms and legs. It's just, I mean, it's so important to note that like the human mind is so limited in what it can understand. So to sit here and think that I have the correct idea and image of what I call God is insane. I think in admitting that God and this idea of God is something that you cannot understand yet, that to me is like honesty within your faith. You know what I mean? Because it's work, right? Practicing a faith is work. You don't just get to be like, I'm a Christian or I'm a Buddhist and then you're good. You know what I mean? Like, I think often it's spun in a way like people will use it to make themselves feel better about the wrongdoings that they've done in their life or whatever. But what it really does is it holds up a mirror and it forces you to really take a hard look at yourself and be like, what am I doing that is getting in my own way, and it's self-destructive behavior? And like, I don't know, like that's how I see it. That's how I use it. And I'm not gonna sit here and pretend, like I said, to know what the heck God's face looks like, but I don't know. I mean, you can tell by my rambling that it's like just a very multi-dimensional thing, but it is. I mean, I don't know if this is true, but it's definitely one of the most, if not the most practiced religions in the world. And it's crazy to think that all just like stemmed from this guy.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Let's talk about Judaism real quick. Similar, like it has a diverse range, of beliefs about the afterlife. I don't think there's a singular view across all Jewish sects. But it has a more focused belief in life here and now. But, many Jews do believe in some form of afterlife. The Olam Haba, the world to come. This is a spiritual realm of peace and divine presence where righteous individuals are rewarded. That kind of sounds like similar to a heaven type concept. The Sheol, and I apologize again if I'm pronouncing things wrong. I'm a human being. In some ancient beliefs, Sheol was seen as a dark, shadowy place where all souls went after death, regardless of their deeds. That's interesting.
Like purgatory.
Right. And then resurrection. Some branches of Judaism, particularly those influenced by more traditional or messianic beliefs, anticipate a future resurrection of the dead. It's also very interesting.
Yeah.
It's funny, like, imagine if, we talk about these, like, just the power of consciousness, and like people that have these near-death experiences that talk about their experience when they do come back to life, kind of. There's a lot of commonalities, but they're described a little differently. Imagine if it's like almost like what you believe is like what you get.
Right.
There's
thought about that.
Have you thought about that?
Whatever your idea of heaven is, like that's what it's going to look like when you get there.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, you just get to build. Maybe that's the whole point of this thing is,
right.
This realization when you die that like your thoughts and your mind have so much more power than you recognize.
Right. That's why I almost like, man, this idea of consciousness, I talk about it a lot, but
Yeah.
that is God to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a unified thing.
Yeah.
And we're all connected. And like, I like this idea of like, what I hope to experience in the afterlife is what I shall experience. You know, and like, it's just interesting, man. And, you know, but let's keep it moving.
Yeah. I mean, before we do though, I think I just want to touch real quick on something you just said. This idea that, you know, whatever you want to call your deity, God, like whatever, this idea that it's in us and all around us, like existence and consciousness, like you just said, that's God, right? That's God at work. And I couldn't agree with that more.
That is that's my perspective.
Yeah,
But-
no, I 1000% agree with that, you know, and I think maybe that's not as traditionally Christian as Christianity can get, but like that's just my version of it. And like, God is an energy, man. God is a force, and it's a purpose, and you know, but you know, at the risk of sounding corny, like God exists between the notes when you're playing music and between the words on the page, and this like that intangible energy that exists within everything. You know what I mean? It's like that's God.
That's God.
Right? Creation, the fact that any of this exists at all. I mean, can you just for a second like wrap your head around the fact that any of this is here?
No.
Why did it play out the way it did? Why, you know, like why do colors look the way they do? How come gravity works the way it does? Why are trees green? How easy would it have been for trees to be purple? And if that was how it always was, we never would have questioned it. You know, why did it play out the way it did? Like, I find that so fascinating. It begs the question of like, is it all part of a plan, or, you know, is the way things are just like a fraction of the plan? It's like, you know, like seeds were planted, so to speak, and then things happened the way they did, and it was random, but like a God still created it. It's like, I mean, it makes your like your brain kind of fall out of your ears when you think about it a little too much, just existence at all. But I mean, we could go on and on about this forever, and we could get super heady about it, but I digress.
Right. I'm going to talk about Islam real quick. Their view on the afterlife. In Islam, the afterlife is a central belief. Muslims believe that after death, everyone will be resurrected for judgment. Their eternal fate, heaven or hell concept, you know, is based on their deeds and faith in Allah and following the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. So, you know, I see a lot of certainly a lot of commonalities in world religions. You know, there's this prophet, and you know, and like their heaven, I think it's Jannah is how it's pronounced, I hope. A paradise of eternal bliss for those who are righteous, have faith in Allah, and follow his guidance. And then the concept of hell, Jahannam, a place of punishment for those who reject faith, live in sin, or fail to repent. It's interesting to me. Like, here's a thought that I've had in the past. Like, what if I'm I'm a good person in my life, you know, and I take care of others, and you know, et cetera, but I don't necessarily, you know, have faith, or, you know what I mean? I'm not showing up to church. I'm not, you know, stuff like that. Like, that's where I kind of, the religion, it almost, I'm not saying it doesn't work for me, but it shouldn't have to be like that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Religion and faith is a way to live your life as a good person, not the only way. And I think that's what a lot of people get misconstrued, and that's where a lot of religious conflict comes from, this idea of, you know, mine is better than yours or whatever. And it's like, the only thing that matters is that we are being good to one another and living a life of good deeds, you know, recognizing our shortcomings and asking for forgiveness. It's like, that's why a lot of these faiths have really, really similar things going on. It's like, because those are the core human values,
Right,
regardless of
right,
what you believe in and where you come from. And it's like, it's so silly that we fight over this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, like, we're just trying to be good people, and we're just trying to survive and get through this the best we can. And like, fighting about religion and faith and arguing and just comparing, it's like so antithetical to what faith is about in the first place. It's about loving your neighbor regardless of what they believe. And if you go through life doing good deeds and you don't practice a certain faith or believe in a certain religion, then like, you still fucking got a gold trophy at the human experience. You know what I mean? And like you said, maybe what you think the afterlife is, if you think there's an afterlife, that's what it is. And as long as you're a good dude, like, you're going to have a good afterlife. I mean, I don't know. Like, we have to remember and remind ourselves of our humanity in this, and the idea that our brains are so small, and we cannot sit here and be like, I know for sure.
Right.
You can hope, and you can be like, I practice Christianity because it allows me to live my life in the best way possible. And it's brought the best out of me, and it has, allowed me to be the best person I can be. And it has gotten me through hard times, and it just makes me feel good. But the second you start like weaponizing it against other people, being like, you are lesser because you don't practice this, it's like, you are immediately diverging from what faith is all about.
And I think a lot of people don't understand that, though, especially like the people that are really fundamental with these teachings, like the fundamentalist Christians, for instance. Like that's not a good way to go about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, because, some of these things that are written in the Bible, for instance, are just, let's be honest. Like,
it's insane. I mean, a lot of the Old Testament stuff is just absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
But it's like, again, like, we're human beings with free will and conscious thought. You don't just have to like accept everything that's put before you.
Right.
You can be like, I'm going to take all the good stuff from this and all the stuff that, aligns with me living a good life of service to others. And I'm just going to kind of ignore this other stuff. It doesn't like, the Bible, for example, it's been translated so many times, and there's so many different like versions and takes on it. It's like, go back to the beginning. What was it all about? It was about helping the poor. It was about the outcasts of society becoming something. You know what I mean? The meek shall inherit the earth. Like, that's what it's about, man. Like, Jesus would be disgusted with mega churches, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, this for-profit thing. It's like, that's not what it's about. And so like you just said, it's like the fundamentalist stuff can get hairy and like, I don't know. Use your fucking brain is what I'm trying to say here. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I want to mention Hinduism. Because some of these Eastern ideologies are very interesting to me, and they kind of reverberate with me. But it teaches that death is a transition and the soul is eternal. The fate of the soul after death depends on the action, karma, of the individual during their life. In some ways it's similar to Buddhism, this concept of reincarnation. The soul is reborn in a new body, and this cycle continues until the soul achieves liberation.
So
I
like
think
Nirvana.
that concept, and I think that concept is interesting. Say I've lived 10 lifetimes, but I haven't quite figured it out quite yet. What it really means to be at the top of my game as a human being. Like, I just think it's interesting, man. Liberation from the cycle of death. I like this concept of liberation too. It's like a cycle of death, and like, this idea that like, and I know Buddhism says a lot about that life is suffering.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's often achieved through spiritual practices, self-realization, and union with the divine. And then karma, actions in past lives, affects one present and future lives. I think that's interesting.
I wonder if that whole thing is like, when we think about the afterlife, what if it's just like someone who doesn't realize they have bad vision, and then they throw a pair of glasses on and they're going, whoa, I can see everything now. And that's the kind of aligns with this idea of the liberation from the cycle of death. You know what I mean? It's like you never really experience pure bliss and joy
Right.
until the afterlife, until you reach nirvana or whatever it is. It's just a fascinating thing to think about.
Right. Straight
And
up.
you know, again, it just holds the mirror up. It's like, remember, we are human, and we're here to work. We're here to do the work, right? And yeah, I think that's fascinating. I love that concept. I love it.
I dig some of the indigenous religions too. You know, they have unique views on the afterlife, often involving a return to nature or the spiritual realm, and the continuation of the community through ancestral spirits. You know, I'm thinking of like Native Americans and stuff like that. And you know, there's a lot of ancestor worship. In many traditions, ancestors remain an active part of the community, continue to influence the lives of the living. And death is often viewed as a transformation or continuation of the spirit rather than an end. I like this idea, man.
Yeah.
You know, and let's not forget about our atheist and agnostic.
I was just going to mention that.
friends.
Like we have to talk about that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I kind of did a little bit of research on atheism. Because there was a period of my life where I was atheist,
Me too.
and then there was a period where I was agnostic. You know, didn't really want to jump on an organized religion, and atheists pretty much believe that existence ends at death, that there's just nothing. I mean,
Who hasn't had that thought and been like, let's entertain that?
absolutely,
You know,
man. It's
like-
a totally valid thought because
course.
it's just as valid because we don't know.
Right.
We don't
Right,
know,
right.
and like this idea of like the termination of your consciousness is fascinating to think about, you know, because consciousness is all we know, and it encompasses everyone we know, everything we know to be true, everything we know to be maybe true. It's like just everything gone. It's like going back to a second ago when we were talking about, like, you know, this dude grew up through his whole life and then bang, it's done in an instant. And here's my question about atheism. Does atheism breed a higher appreciation of life, or nihilism, or optimistic nihilism, where you're like, none of this really matters because, you know, when I'm done, it's done. So I may as well have a good time and enjoy this and be good. You know, it's like,
and that's I've sometimes I operate from that mentality.
Yeah,
of like, hey,
for sure.
and certainly you don't know. So
right.
why not take that approach anyway? Because like in the grand scheme of the universe, like we're small and
Right.
insignificant.
And our time here on Earth as the human race is, in the grand scheme of things,
Drop.
a blip.
Yeah,
It's
a blip.
like-
and so like that's kind of the nihilistic perspective.
Sure.
But then you can take that and be like, you know what? The fact that I'm here is a miracle.
Right.
Keeping that all in mind.
Right.
So like let's rip it up, have a lot of fun, love each other passionately,
Right.
and do what we want to do in this life, man.
Right. I think whatever you believe, whatever faith, or maybe whatever faith you don't believe, you can still find a reason to be good to one another
100%
in this
dude.
life. I mean, that
feels good.
right. That's just being a human.
Right.
That's at its base it should be in our nature. And gosh, I don't know. I think
What was the point you made before the optimistic nihilistic thing? There's like a couple ways of looking at atheism.
I was curious if it breeds a higher appreciation for life or
certainly,
a nihilistic
maybe
view on life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you realize, hey, this is it.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you just fade into the blackness. Screen goes black at the end.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing wrong with that, man.
No.
Like that might be eternal bliss in and of itself.
Sure.
It's
The freedom
it's time to
of
rest.
consciousness. Yeah.
Yeah. You're free now.
Yeah, and it's like, it begs the question, you know, if we have this idea that we get to live multiple lives, you know, I can imagine a scenario where someone would believe that and think, oh, I don't need to do that good in this life because I've got another one coming.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas maybe an atheist is like, I got to do the best I can because
Yeah.
this is it.
Or not take care of your health or whatever.
Right, sure. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe
And
an
it's like,
atheist be like, yeah, man, I'm gonna treat my body in like a temple.
yeah.
You know,
I think
this is
that-
the only one I got.
Yeah, and I think the thing we're getting at here is that a lot of these faiths are multidimensional, and you've got different kinds of beliefs within them, and those can coexist. You know, I'm pretty over this idea of like there's one and that's it.
That's silly.
The beauty of the human existence is that we can all have differing beliefs on what happens after you die, and differing opinions. I mean, it's
It could be that way. Who says
That-
there's got to be
exactly.
a definitive afterlife?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
So believe what
I
you
mean?
want to believe, and
That's why I consider myself a little agnostic. I mean,
Sure.
the older I get, the more I have these different experiences, and I think about these things more deeply. Like,
yeah,
there is a lot of uncertainty about
absolutely.
whether it exists or not, this
Mhm.
afterlife thing. Like, and there's there was one point when I was younger and I was very scientific, brick by brick, this
Mhm.
mindset, and I was like, no way.
Yeah,
And as I've gotten older, I'm like, man, it'd be silly for me not to entertain these ideas, but I don't know.
right.
How could I possibly
That's the
say
most scientific thing
definitively?
you can say.
Right.
Is I don't know.
And
Don't.
I'm very open-minded about it all.
Yeah.
You know?
You never
So-
trust anybody who deals in absolutes, man. I mean, that's rule number one.
Yeah.
But like, I don't see any reason why science and faith can't coexist.
Yeah.
I literally do not see a reason for that.
Yeah.
It's almost like, at a certain point, people are just looking to fight. It's
Right.
like,
dude, some of these
Give it up.
scientists who are like incredible scientists, like they make these discoveries and it's like they almost become more faithful. It's like, this is
yeah.
just wild.
Think
stuff.
about looking at that first picture of the black hole, and you're like, shit, there must be a God if that thing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
something.
it's just, I don't know. And like our own personal stories and our own experiences lead us down these different corridors, man.
Yeah.
And like, again, that is the beauty of the human experience, is that we all have different experiences. And
right.
yeah, it truly is a melting pot, man.
Good stuff.
Yeah, we got in there.
We talked a little bit about these near-death experiences. This stuff's fascinating to me.
Mm.
These people that, first of all, like dying and then like coming back, or like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, or like your heart stopping, like Damar Hamlin, like,
I literally was about to talk about Damar
Really?
Hamlin. Go Bills.
and just like, there's a lot of commonalities in what a lot of these people talk about. And that to me is very interesting.
Mm.
It's almost like here's some kind of these. You think all these people got together and were like, "This is what we're gonna say, guys."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like this is like this is like there's no hardcore proof necessarily, but you got to take these people's. This is very fascinating stuff, dog. So I got a few stories here that I found that I want to share. But do you have anything you want to?
I have one near-death experience that happened to me.
Oh, that happened to you?
Yeah, I was playing airsoft many years ago. We went out to this field in Penn Yan, New York, and the field kind of existed next to this long hill. Right, it was like a 45-degree angle hill, steep, and I'm flanking around the right side. It's like me and one other dude, and I'm not jumping from tree to tree, but I am like kind of
Yeah.
using them to get across because it's freaking steep. And I go to jump for one, and for some reason I slip, and dude, I start going down this hill, and this hill was maybe like 50 yards long. It was a long hill, and I'm sliding down it like fucking like Spider-Man on the side of a building, dude. And at the end of the hill is a 15-foot drop off into a river with like a bunch of rocks.
Oof.
And I'm flying. I'm like, holy! I'm trying to grab onto stuff around me, and I'm like, dude, I'm gonna die if I fly into this river. And I don't know if an angel came down and situated me in a certain way, but I hurled off that cliff, dude, and I landed on my knees. And I was wearing knee pads. And I land on my knees and my face slams into the rocks, but I was wearing a mask that had a little bit of cushion. And it just goes bang. And I'm standing there just stunned for a second that I'm not full of shattered bones in my body. And I hear the dude at the top go, yeah, we got to stop. He fell. They had to like send someone down to help me get out. Man, it was crazy. It was crazy. There's sort of like a split second when I was flying through the air. I was like, this is it.
That's
Really?
nuts.
I died playing airsoft? That's lame.
Yeah,
You know?
that's tough, man.
Yeah.
I had one, and I ain't talking about the run-in with the Mexican gangsters.
Oh my gosh.
I'm talking
That's
about
the greatest story I've ever
an
heard.
actual. I was, I think I was in St. Martin with my mom or something. It was my mom and my sisters were on vacation, whatever. And my mom's laying on the beach reading a magazine. I was like really young. I wasn't super young, but probably, elementary school.
Sure.
And I'm out in the ocean, and it's like a private little beach. We're like the only ones on the beach. My mom's flipping through a mag, and like I was a strong swimmer, so she's not really worried about me, I get pulled under in like a riptide. Or what are those called? Are they called riptides?
I think so.
Yeah, it yanks me on undercurrent, yanks me under the water, like deep.
Yeah.
And it was so strong that it kicked up like this big boulder, and I like slide under the boulder, and the boulder lands on top of me.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm tweaking. I'm like, I can't move. I think this is it for me. And I'm a young kid, man. Like, I don't want to go.
Oh no.
You know what I mean? My mom.
Woof.
But there was a moment where I was like, damn, it's over. But I wasn't willing to go. So I fought and I shimmied.
Hey, shit.
And I shimmied out and I swam. I knew to swim parallel to the shore to get out of the current. So I start swimming.
Are you above water at this point?
No, I'm still under the water.
Still under the water?
Yeah. It wasn't like, it felt like minutes, but it was probably, 30 seconds.
Right.
But, and this is at a time when, I hadn't smoked weed for 10 years. Like my lung capacity was legit. So I swim and I pop out and I get back on the beach and I'm huffing and puffing. But, it was just funny. You said yours, so I had to say mine. But
yeah, no, I mean, that's terrifying, especially when you're in that moment. It may seem, in a bird's eye view, it may seem not that crazy, but I've been sucked under by the undercurrent too, man. I mean, that is like,
it's frightening.
Yeah, I've got scars on my back because there was a bunch of broken rocks and shells, and I got dragged, and I came out, and I was like, "Yeah, that was crazy." My mom's like, "Your fucking back is bleeding," So that shit, yeah, that's no joke. No, that's really scary, for sure.
I'm gonna drop a couple of these, and just real quick.
Okay,
I'm gonna talk about.
Go for it.
Anita Morjani. She had terminal cancer. And she was in a coma when her organs started to shut down. She was given just hours to live. And during her coma, she had a profound near-death experience. And she described floating outside her body and observing the doctors and her family. She felt an overwhelming sense of peace and love, and even encountered deceased loved ones, including her father. She reported seeing a brilliant light and feeling an intense sense of unity with the universe.
Whoa. I got chills, dude.
Right. Here's another one. Dr. Eben Alexander, a neurosurgeon, contracted a severe bacterial meningitis that caused his brain to shut down. He was in a coma for 7 days and was declared critically dead. During his coma, he had a vivid near-death experience. He described entering a realm filled with vibrant colors and a beautiful heavenly landscape. He encountered a beautiful being of light who conveyed a sense of love and peace. He felt a sense of oneness with the universe. Described his experience as being far more real than real.
There's goosebumps all over my arms right now.
Okay.
Hearing that.
Let me just keep going here.
Shit.
This girl, Maria, a woman from the United States, almost drowned while on vacation in Mexico. She was caught in a strong ocean current, there you go, and lost consciousness under the water. As Maria began to lose consciousness, she described being pulled from her body and entering a bright, peaceful light. She felt as though she was surrounded by love and said she was enveloped by a warmth she had never felt before. She described meeting beings of light who communicated with her without words, conveying messages of peace and spiritual truth. She recalled seeing vivid images of her life and her loved ones, feeling an overwhelming sense of unconditional love. She reported feeling no fear, only deep peace.
Wow.
There's a bunch of these, man, and like there's that commonality of like bright light.
Yeah.
When you think of goodness, light, you know, these beings, these bright, and like there's a lot of I'm gonna go into one more. This has happened to a kid, and this is interesting because I think the kid was like 4 years old, but he underwent emergency surgery for a ruptured appendix. During the surgery, he experienced a near-death event. I guess the doctors were like, he might not survive the surgery. I mean, while he was unconscious, he described having a vivid experience of going to heaven. as a kid. He said he saw Jesus, angels, and a huge throne. He also described meeting a sister who had died before he was born. Here's the interesting part. He didn't know. His parents never told him about the sister, I guess. So, like, he talked about this, and he could not have known until after, right? He described heaven as a place of indescribable beauty with vibrant colors, lush fields, welcoming people. He mentions, all this stuff. His father wrote a book about it and stuff. But yeah,
Oh
man,
my
it's just
goodness.
interesting, man. Like, this is like, it's just interesting. That's all I can really say. Like, it's just,
I mean, the fact that they all had these shared experiences, man. It's
Right.
just like we go back to, talking about nightmares and sleep paralysis, like the man in the hat. Like,
yeah, I just thought about that too. It's fun.
man, it's just more evidence that we are all so much more connected than we
Right.
talk about, man. That's insane. Oh my God. I had goosebumps the whole time of that. It was crazy.
It's just wild, man.
Yeah.
Just wild. So
Damn.
I don't know. Something happens. I think something happens.
Yeah. Hey, it's got to be something.
Something happens, man. If you're done on that note, I want to transition into something else that's interesting
Sure,
to
yeah,
me.
go for it,
When it comes to the subject of death and stuff. I've goofed around with some psychedelics, as I'm sure you have too. And
Allegedly.
yeah, allegedly. And I think this concept of mortality, like when you're in that psychedelic state, is interesting.
Mm.
You almost feel that connectedness more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've looked in the mirror when I was on some mushrooms.
Bad move.
And it's weird because I'm looking at my face, which normally the ego vain part of me would be like, that's my face. But when I'm on the shrooms, like, I'm looking and it's just, I just see a decaying corpse almost a little bit.
Whoa.
It's just kind of like more
Like your mortality becomes really evident.
Right.
Oh
But
my gosh.
it's also this more spiritual being is looking at it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. It's almost like you're looking at your old self in terms of the you pre-death.
Right.
That's fascinating, man.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Mushrooms are, yeah, those are crazy, man.
Psilocybin's interesting. DMT.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's interesting stuff, man. A lot of people who have taken DMT describe experiences that are deeply transformative and spiritual and stuff. And I think I'm not 100% on the science, but I think your brain releases a lot of it when you die.
Yeah.
Just fascinating, bro.
Yeah.
And here's a theory. Some theories suggest that consciousness could exist outside of the brain, meaning that death might not be the end. DMT's potential to produce experiences that feel like communication with otherworldly entities or entry into an alternate dimension raises interesting questions about what happens when the body dies. Is the brain just a vessel and consciousness a kind of non-local phenomenon? DMT could be a tool that helps us access these deeper non-material aspects of our consciousness. I'm obsessed with consciousness now.
But I'm still afraid to smoke weed. Yeah, dude.
It's fascinating stuff.
It
bro.
really is, man. One time I accidentally tripped balls and watched Happy Feet.
Electric.
That was the worst experience of my life.
Really?
Closest I ever felt to God. Yeah, no, the part where Jack Black's penguin comes out and he's got the plastic shit around his neck. I was like, we gotta be better as a species. Yeah, it was. Oh my gosh, that was a lot. Yeah, I was just microdosing. Not crazy, dude.
It's nuts, man.
That's insane.
So interesting, bro.
Yeah, I kind of want to really push the spear in right now. I want to talk about what do you hope happens after you die and what do you think happens? And those can be the same thing. But I'm just curious. I think we should talk about this.
I feel like having these conversations alters my mindset sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't have these conversations a lot. You got to be with the right cat
Yeah.
to talk about this stuff.
And it's
You're the
always a
right
good
cat.
hang.
It's always a good hang. Man, my fantasy of what happens when I die, man, I hope it is I hope it's an easy transition.
Yeah.
part of me, there's a small part of me that thinks it might just be a fade to black. Movie ends.
Mm.
You know what I mean? But there's no sense of loss because it's just over.
There's no you to sense the loss anymore.
Exactly. So like that can be kind of a scary thing to think about, though.
Sure.
As someone who with an ego who has, loved ones and things he cares about.
Yeah.
But another bigger part of me thinks that it's not the end. And there's a spirit or a consciousness or whatever you want to call it that moves on somewhere. I don't know where.
Yeah.
Into wherever. And like, I guess my fantasy is that spirit can do what it wants. In a sense, it can, it's the transition is very, people talk about in these near-death experiences. It's there's an unconditional love. There's a profound, peaceful, feeling and a warmth. And I dig all that. But like to be able to explore whatever, like the universe, like what do I have? What can I do?
To be shown what's truly out there.
Right.
Yeah. I think.
And like, is there like the reincarnation thing? Like maybe I can come back when I want to come back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That'd be cool.
Maybe more is up to you than you think.
Right. Maybe.
I mean, that's something we've been talking about through this whole episode, man. I mean, it pains me to think about how little of the universe we get to see in our lifetime here on Earth. I mean, just the fact of just how big the universe is, man, you can't even fucking imagine how big the universe is and how long it's going to be around and has been. It's just like, dude, like those numbers do not compute in this old fucking smooth brain, right? It's crazy, man. And so, no wonder we have faith and really, it's like, just none of it makes sense. So we try to make sense of it. That's like our thing as humans, trying to make sense of what we don't understand. And like, I think this idea to admit that you're human and to question it and to have times where do you think it fades to black, or you have other times where you think you might be reincarnated? Like that's so natural.
Right. It's
so unbelievably stupid to expect yourself to just be so rigid about everything.
Right,
you know what I mean? And
right.
like, I hope that when I die, I get to go to a place of abundant peace, prosperity, and oneness, right? This thing that these people describe, the beings of light talking to you, like that's my version of heaven, right? My version of heaven also includes the best things about this life. Because what if you get there and you're like, man, I miss the provolone from Garofalo's. You know what I mean? It's like, I hope that stuff is there too.
So you think you're still in like this human form?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think the human body is custom tailored to the experience here on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. There's things for us to grab with our thumbs,
right.
And we walk opposing gravity. It's just like,
it's funny how like when a lot of people think about heaven, they think about this experience, but just
better
dialed up.
Yeah.
It's like you might not even you probably don't need to eat.
That's crazy, but you can if you want,
right?
Because food is killing.
Yeah,
I don't know, maybe it's me and you at the Shoney's. I don't know, dude. I don't know. I think like I just have some other thoughts here. Like I think that there is a prosperous afterlife. That's a definitive belief that I have.
Do you think there is a torturous one?
Let me say my next thought, because I think this kind of answers that. I don't know if we will be able to quantify good or bad in the same way that we do it here, because it'll be such a different dimension of existence and experience. Well, that's what I think. Like things that we deem bad, right? Killing someone, stubbing your toe, having a stomach. Like if we're in a place where that stuff isn't even a thing, how do we quantify what's good and bad? Right. And it's like, it's very human to think that our afterlife experience will mirror the good and bad experiences of what we have here on Earth. You know what I mean? And
damn, it's a great thought, man.
And thanks. I think the human mind is so limited in what it can understand. Like the very knowledge and awareness of consciousness is insane.
Right.
The fact that we are aware of consciousness,
Yeah.
but I still don't think that we fully grasp the magnitude of what could be and what is after we
I
die.
agree.
I
agree.
I really do think that you have to approach faith and just human existence with a humble posture. You know what I mean? And it's like, my faith is something that I've chosen, and I don't follow it with a posture of, I'm sure of how this works, right? But it works for me.
Right.
And it helps me to live my life in a better way, in a more loving way. And it makes me feel good, right?
That's good, man.
And that's how I want to live my life. And I found that there's evidence of it, you know, bringing the best side of me out and allowing me to live in a more loving way with, you know, people like you and just other people in my life. And so it's like, I don't know.
It's serving you.
Yes, it serves me, and it allows me to serve others.
Perfect.
That's what truly serves you, is what allows you to serve others.
Bang.
And centers that as the cornerstone of the belief. So
Right.
I don't know. I think, did you have any more points to hit on that?
No.
I think we should hit some final notes here about like what's the point, right?
Right.
How do we live life to its fullest? You know, like the way I see it, the amount of things that we don't do for fear of being judged is asinine. And for better or worse, it's really simple. It's not easy, but it's simple to pull the gravity out of what other people say and think. And like I say, it's simple, but not easy, because it's really easy as humans. It's our human nature to make snap judgments and, you know, to just be like, oh, I'm going to get angry. Right. But if you think about it, you can pull the gravitas out of that and be like, if I like this outfit, I'm going to fucking go out in it. You know what I mean? And it's like, we talk about the regrets of the dying are often what they didn't do, not what they did.
Boom.
Right. So what are the key points? Wear what you want, first of all.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with good people.
Yeah.
The pressure to fit in is just as hollow as fucking paper currency is.
You are enough, dude.
That's what, exactly, dude. Learning how to say yes and no with confidence. You know, life is long when you're at the DMV, but it's sure as short as hell when you're with the people you love. So get your ass out of the DMV.
Yeah, man.
And just like be present.
Right.
You know, we got to stop. God, I sound like a fucking Tumblr post right now, but like, we got to stop living in our phones.
Yeah.
We got to stop living in the opinions of others.
Right.
And just like, humanity is like right in front of us.
Dude, we are all connected.
Yeah.
And this idea of Sonder, this idea that you walk by people and they're living a life just as complex as your own.
Yeah.
So why not be kind?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like little acts of kindness inspire other acts of kindness.
It really does, man.
You know, so
That's important.
I've tried to live by that, you know. I've tried to be kind, you know. I have moments of weakness sometimes, but that's part of being a human being. You gotta, you know, forgive yourself for those.
Yeah.
And just keep working on it. And I think the beauty of of this life is the process of learning and growing and being the best version of yourself. And yeah, it's a shared experience.
Yeah.
And it is suffering, but there's beauty in the struggle. So.
Yeah. I think we got to bring up that Pressfield quote again. Like, you don't have a right to the fruits of your labor, only to the labor itself. And that, like, what a great analogy that is for, you know, stop living your life feeling entitled that you get heaven at the end.
Right.
Like, the only thing you're entitled to is waking up.
Right.
Every day.
Yeah.
So fucking make the best of it, man.
Make this world heaven for other people.
Right.
By being a good person.
Yeah. It's, you know, now at this point in history, it's more important than ever to just emphasize community and just the folks around you and love and the lives of others, man. And gratitude. Like, I don't know. I definitely want to take this moment to like, just say thank you, not only for everyone who has watched the podcast and just taking the time out of their busy days to spend some time with us. And, you know, like we're just sitting here goofing around, and hopefully it's, you know, serving you in a positive way, but also just in my personal experience, like my music career, like it took a village, man. And I am standing on the shoulders of giants, and like, it needs to be said. And I just need it to be known that like, and I'm sure we share this sentiment, but like, I couldn't have done it without people, man.
Big time.
Community is everything. And, you know, if you're lucky enough to get to a point of influence, it is your duty to use that influence to improve the lives of those who got you to that point, and to never forget them, and to always just show them love. And so that's what this life is about, man. It's like we all come up together. That's it.
Love you, kid.
Love you too, man.
Good talk.
Tell your co-host you love him.